Galactic Incident Report, number 742289-105A. Astronomical date, 13.73b. Source: recorded from the personal log of a student from Tshirt School of Excellence after a 27-day disappearance following the end of their internship. I'm not sure how I'm still alive. By all accounts, I should either be a burnt shadow on the floor, drifting in the void of space, or just... Okay, let's just follow protocol. The captain said that the council is going to want everyone's explanation for this disaster. My name is Luash, and I am or was the 13th ship maintenance worker for the 1588th exploration ship. Due to a number of unfortunate incidents, during the initial incident, I was given the rank of 4th maintenance engineer. I was assigned to this ship as an intern crew member from the Tshirt School of Excellence for its Expertise Development Program. At the end of our work study, our ship was attacked and pursued for 10 days by a number of GAC ships. For context, before this situation happened, I and a number of my classmates had the chance to go on a deep space research ship and watch the methods and day-to-day activities of our respective fields while working. Near the end of our time aboard the ship, we had to stop at a nearby station that's believed to be frequented by pirates and smugglers. After spending some time searching for spare funds and selling off junk materials to cover higher fuel costs, we were stopped and questioned by a patrolling GAC security force. And while annoying, it was a pretty simple situation. They just wanted us to prove who we were and that we were in the places we said. So we sent them our manifest, the crew logs, my class's work-study documentation, and we even sent them our travel records and fuel purchases. Everything was in order and was going well. Then they shot at us. Okay, they did hit us. They really just grazed us, and that was probably on purpose. Considering what weapons were on one of the larger ships, I think they were trying to knock the shields offline, and then hit us with an electromagnetic disruptor. I was talking to the chief engineer, Tuan, about apprenticeships or other job opportunities after I graduated, when the ship was hit. Both of us and anything else that wasn't welded down in the office were knocked to the ground by the impact. Before we could stand, the former captain Joanne announced over the speakers shortly after that we were about to make an emergency exit from the system and head to a secure location. After a 10-second countdown, we were flying in a random direction through space. When everything settled down, Tuan stormed onto the bridge demanding an explanation. Captain Joe failed to send over the ship's identification codes, which would have clarified that we were a government-sponsored research vessel and avoided this situation in the first place. He also adamantly refused to allow either a physical inspection or a ship scan to prove that we weren't harboring anything illicit, reasoning that they could affect sensitive experiments. Saying that Tuan was mad would be an understatement, and he wasn't the only one. Everyone with any semblance of authority was upset, even if they didn't immediately express it. And to make things worse, he made the ship's damage even worse. After taking that first hit, the damage wasn't too bad, just some minor structural damage, and the pole slightly melted some of the metal of the hull. Activating the FTO engines while the shields were weakened caused the heat and momentum from the engines to bend the frame and melt nearly entire sections of the hull. And because of the new breaches, we lost a lot of the supplies we had. With the time we had, we did a head count, made repairs, blocked off damaged areas of the ship, and collected whatever remaining water we had. Then the navigators detected a few ships coming from where we left. They didn't even bother to listen when we tried to connect with them, by sending them every signal we could think of. And so began our 10-day expedition of survival. The first and second days were our introduction and acclimation to the new schedule we had for life on the go. The GAC ships show up, shoot at us, someone gets hurt or dies, we flee, repair what we need to live, and then do it again. We started a more strict rotation of sleeping schedules and rationed the little supplies that we had. Actually, the third day wasn't that bad, or at the very least, it was not horrible enough to recall clearly. Everyone was hungry from being on quarter rations, irritable from the stress of being in this mess, and miserable. Day 4 was the most strenuous for most of the crew. Security spent most of the day breaking up fights and glaring at anyone who looked like they were about to start one. Maintenance workers had to start cannibalizing parts from all around the ship to keep critical functions online. All the while, the crew was looking through every packet and folder to find the ship's identification codes. On the 5th day, Captain Joanne managed to get back in contact with the GAC Minor Captain, though that obviously didn't change much. That day, we had the most casualties, so it was the busiest for the medical bay, and the morgue. Oh, and it was also the day the crew mutinied. Due to how poorly he handled the initial conversation with the other captain, Joanne had gotten a good number of threatening messages, which basically doubled after the second botched attempt. So after that second attempt failed, it felt a bit strange that he couldn't succinctly explain the situation. With a bit of poking around the ship and a few discussions with Joanne, and some members of communication, we found out the reason we stopped off at the station in the first place. He and a few others from navigation and storage had apparently been offloading contraband the entire time we were travelling. It was also revealed that the redacted was embezzling funds. We did manage to get back in contact with the GAC ships, but because we fled from them earlier, we would all be treated as smugglers. What's more, we were told that the ship could be destroyed without any issue. So, that's why Cho Sen was promoted to the captain's position. I think we stopped losing so many people on the 7th day, and while that was a relief, I didn't really keep track of the number of casualties. And more good news that day, the ship's identification codes were found. It turns out that one of the software techs working with the ex-captain accidentally added it to a field study while altering financial reports. He just couldn't open the files again due to the anti-falsification tools in the data collection program. The software team spent hours searching for the identification codes in the expedition results, and it took the software lead, Ko Din, a few minutes to get the codes from the files, which was helpful when we got back home and weren't harassed. The 9th day was the most difficult, when one of the water purifiers broke down. So until it was repaired, the water fluctuated between being fairly usable, oversaturated with chemicals, or actual sewage when coming out of the tap. Then we arrived just outside the Sol system. Our ship's navigators located 3 systems that could have provided what we needed to make hasty repairs and refuel. One system was transmitting several radio waves, which scans revealed to be swarms of satellites operating at frequencies typical of pre-FTL civilizations, just with way more satellites than usual. There were so many satellites that we assumed it wouldn't surprise them if a few of them went offline. It's not out of the question for random debris to take a few offline. Look, we all promised that we'd pay them back later, but survival comes first, you know. There were still GAC ships following us, but we assumed the signals would help us with that as well. In most cases, neither GAC's military nor political personnel are permitted to enter or interact with any pre-FTL civilization. I emphasize in most cases, due to one exception we found. Unless they're searching for suspects trying to hide in those locations. So we set up and sent out a couple of dummy boys to be sent out during FTL travel to simulate our ship's energy and radio frequencies, hopped over to this system, and put the engine on silent for a while to collect supplies and debris. We were caught by both of the groups we were hiding from, and didn't even get enough time to make repairs or refuel, so we just gave up. A message was sent to all the ships in the vicinity, informing them that they were in Terran United Front-controlled space, and ordering them to turn off all relativistic weapons and transportation. Considering that we either didn't have or couldn't do any of those things, we just waited, hoping that the GAC ships wouldn't blow us up in front of the locals. During that time, everyone on the ship began to either speculate about the locals' intentions, or prepare their wills. After a while, the sensors picked up on 3 smaller spacecraft coming from just the ugliest ship I've ever seen. The thing has strange shapes. Some of it was blocky, some of it was smooth, and some looked like they didn't have anything covering sensitive components. And I think those were the parts the GAC ships were warming up and aiming their weapons at, as they turned to the Terran ships. As we were typing a warning about psychos, we realized that the GAC ships were firing missiles used to destroy large asteroids. So we just decided to pray for the people on the ships. Then we all had this feeling. It was more like one of those intrusive thoughts that appear out of nowhere, prompting us to put up our shields. The strange thing, though, was that we all had those thoughts or ideas at the same time. So that's what we did. The shields were raised, and we watched as the missiles flew through the void. Then two things happened. First, a few bright lights came from the small ships slicing through the missiles, blowing them up a safe distance away. Second, the smaller ships had a strange shimmer sweeping over them. We would have wondered if the GAC ship missed them if we weren't watching it all happen. Then we had another intrusive thought tell us to max out the shields. Everyone I spoke to afterwards had that thought, and they all said it wasn't in any of our voices. So once again, we listened to whoever gave us the thought, and this time we watched as one of the smaller ships fired a capsule from a missile port. Then everything just went white. Our equipment had about a half second to record some information before cutting out or displaying, to say the very least, concerning readings. Everyone was a bit staggered after that happened, then terrified when the three large ships that were following us turned into a number of molten heaps of slag. After waiting a few minutes for things to figuratively and somehow literally cool down, we received another text-based transmission from the Terrans. They apologized for the inconvenience, asked if we needed any repairs, and politely confirmed that, yes, we were still being arrested. So, that's how we began our trip to Terran space, becoming their first ambassadors and second prisoners.